My girlfriend dumped me after I paid off her student loans. I don't need you anymore, she smirked. So I let her think she won. Until she read the fine print. I never saw it coming. Not like this. We were sitting at dinner, the same place we'd gone every Friday night for the last 2 years. I had just finished telling her about a trip we could take now that things were looking good for us financially. That's when she put her fork down, looked me dead in the eye, and said it. I think we should break up. I actually laughed. Because I thought she was joking. Very funny, I said, shaking my head. But she wasn't smiling. I'm serious, she said, tilting her head slightly, like she was bored of me. And then? Then she smirked. I don't need you anymore. I blinked, trying to process what I had just heard. What? The word barely made it out of my mouth. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling like she was relieved. I was going to wait a little longer, but honestly, it feels good to just get it over with. Things between us were fine when I had obligations. But now? She shrugged. I don't have to pretend anymore. Obligations. Pretend. Her words hit like a truck. I paid off her student loans 2 weeks ago. I had watched her cry with relief when I told her she was finally free. I had done it because I loved her. Because I thought we were building a future together. But to her, it wasn't love. It was a transaction. And now that the balance was zero, so was my value to her. Let me get this straight, I said, forcing my voice to stay even. You're breaking up with me. Because you're debt-free now. She rolled her eyes, like I was being so dramatic. Don't act so surprised. You had to know things were gonna end eventually. Had I? Because the last 2 years? I had loved her. I had planned a future with her. I had supported her through every financial struggle, every stressful moment, every night where she cried about how she would never get ahead in life. And now she was looking at me like I was some disposable credit card. So, what now? I asked, staring at her. You're just gonna walk away like none of this ever mattered? She smirked again. That damn smirk. Look, you were great when I needed you. But I don't need a safety net anymore. A safety net. That's all I ever was to her. Not a partner. Not a man she loved. Just a means to an end. And the worst part? She didn't even have the decency to hide it. For a second, I wanted to yell. I wanted to call her out, to tell her exactly what kind of person she was. But then, I stopped, because I realized something. She thought she had won. She thought she was walking away scot-free, completely in the clear. But she didn't know. She didn't know that while she had spent years playing me, I had spent years playing smart. So instead of losing my temper, I did something better. I smiled. Fine, I said, keeping my voice calm. Enjoy your debt-free life. She relaxed, completely oblivious. Then I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and leaned in close. But you might want to read the fine print first. And with that, I walked away. Because the game wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. When I met Emma, she was different. At least, that's what I told myself. She wasn't like the other girls I had dated. She was smart, ambitious, driven. She had dreams of starting her own business, making something of herself. But there was always one thing standing in her way. Her student loans. From the moment we got serious, her debt was a constant shadow over our relationship. She talked about it all the time. I feel like I'll never get ahead, she'd say, sighing as she scrolled through her bank account. Every time I make a payment, the interest just swallows it up. It's like I'm stuck in this endless cycle. I listened. I comforted her. I told her she was strong enough to get through it. But every time, the conversation ended the same way. If I didn't have these loans hanging over me, I could finally breathe. I wanted to help her breathe. I wanted to give her the future she deserved. And I thought, isn't that what love is? Helping your partner when they need it most. So I made a decision. A decision I thought was the right one. At the time, I was in a comfortable place financially. I wasn't rich, but I had a stable job, good savings, and I was responsible with money. I thought, if I have the ability to make her life better, why wouldn't I? So one night, I sat her down, took her hands, and said, I'm going to pay off your student loans. She just stared at me. Her eyes went wide, her lips parted, and for a moment, I thought she might actually cry. Are you serious? She whispered. Dead serious, I said, smiling. She launched herself into my arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. Oh my God. You have no idea what this means to me, she choked out. No one has ever done something this big for me. And in that moment, seeing the emotion on her face, I felt like the best man in the world. Like I had just given her the future she always dreamed of. I was wrong. At first, nothing seemed different. She was grateful, affectionate, attentive. She told me how much she loved me, how she couldn't believe she had someone as generous as me in her life. But then, little things started changing. The first red flag came a week after the final loan payment cleared. We had been planning a trip, something she had always wanted to do but couldn't because of her debt. I figured this was the perfect new chapter for us. So, should we start booking flights? I asked one night. She hesitated. Actually, she said, twirling a strand of hair around her finger, I was thinking, maybe I'll do a little solo trip first. You know, now that I have financial freedom, I want to really experience life on my own. I laughed, thinking she was joking. On your own? I asked. Since when? She smiled, but not the sweet kind. It was something else. Something calculating. It's just something I've been thinking about. Nothing against you, babe. I've never really had the chance to be truly independent. It was strange, but I let it slide. Big mistake. Over the next few weeks, the changes became more obvious. She started going out more. She was less affectionate. She stopped talking about our future and started talking about her future. And every time I asked what was going on, she had the same excuse. I've just been feeling so free lately. Like I can finally do things for me. And then, one day, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. Now that I don't have to stress about money, I can actually date the kind of guy I want. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I should have confronted her right then and there. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Because I was still holding on to the idea of us. I was still telling myself that what we had was real. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. But at the time, I thought I was doing something amazing for the woman I love. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. That she was just adjusting to her new financial freedom. That things would go back to normal. But deep down, I knew better. Because the moment I paid off her debt, Emma started pulling away. It wasn't immediate. It started with small things. A text she used to send during the day, left unanswered. A night that was supposed to be spent together, suddenly cancelled. Plans for the future? Vanished from conversation. When we first started dating, she would always talk about the life we were going to build together. When we buy our first house. One day, when we take that big trip to Europe. When we're married, we should. But now? Now it was just her. I want to do more traveling. I think I might start looking at new apartments. I just want to focus on me for a while. I wasn't in the picture anymore. Then came the late nights. The constant texting. The random phone calls that she always walked out of the room to take. And when I asked who she was talking to, she just laughed and said, "Oh, just friends." The worst part? I wanted to believe her. Even when my gut told me something was wrong. Even when I saw the way she smiled at her phone, the way she hid her screen when I walked by. I was in denial. Because if I admitted what was happening, I'd have to admit that I'd been used. Then came the night that changed everything. We were having dinner, our usual Friday night routine. I was telling her about a trip we could take, now that things were looking good for us. That's when she put her fork down, exhaled, and said the words that would burn into my brain forever. "I think we should break up." At first, I laughed. Because it had to be a joke. "Very funny," I said, shaking my head. But she wasn't smiling. She was calm. Like this was just a casual conversation. "I'm serious," she said, tilting her head slightly. And then? She smirked. "I don't need you anymore." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "What?" She let out a small, amused sigh. "I was going to wait a little longer, but honestly, it feels good to just get it over with." She picked up her wine glass, took a slow sip, and then said it. "Things between us were fine when I had obligations. But now?" She set the glass down and shrugged. "I don't have to pretend anymore." Pretend. She had been pretending. The entire time. Every "I love you." Every "thank you, babe." Every night spent together, every moment I thought was real. It was all fake. And I had paid tens of thousands of dollars for the privilege of being used. "Let me get this straight," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "You're breaking up with me because you're debt-free now?" She rolled her eyes, like I was being so dramatic. "Don't act so surprised. You had to know things were gonna end eventually." Had I? Because for 2 years, I had loved her. I had planned a future with her. I had supported her through every financial struggle, every stressful moment, every night where she cried about money and said she'd never get ahead. I had fixed that. And now? She was throwing me away like a used tissue. "So, what now?" I asked, staring at her. You're just gonna walk away like none of this ever mattered? That damn smirk again. Look, you were great when I needed you. But I don't need a safety net anymore. A safety net. That's all I ever was to her. Not a partner. Not a man she loved. Just a means to an end. And the worst part? She wasn't even trying to hide it. For a second, I wanted to explode. I wanted to call her out, to tell her exactly what kind of garbage human being she was. I wanted to scream. But then I stopped, because I realized something. She thought she had won. She thought she was walking away scot-free, completely in the clear. But she didn't know. She didn't know that while she had spent years playing me, I had spent years playing smart. So instead of losing my temper, I did something better. I smiled. Okay, I said. I understand. She blinked, surprised. You do? Yeah, I nodded. I get it now. You don't need me anymore. She grinned. Exactly. I lifted my drink, swirling the liquid. Well, I guess that's that, then. And for a second, I could tell, she expected a fight. She expected me to argue, to beg, to try to win her back. But I just smiled. Enjoy your debt-free life, Emma. And with that, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and leaned in close. But you might want to read the fine print first. She frowned. What? I just turned and walked away. Because the game wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. I could have fought. I could have begged. But instead, I just waited. Because I knew something she didn't. It took exactly 1 week for her to realize the truth. 1 week of thinking she had won. 1 week of celebrating her so-called freedom. And then? Then she opened her mailbox. The letter arrived on a Monday. Plain white envelope, official looking. Nothing dramatic. She probably assumed it was junk mail until she opened it. Until she saw the words that made her entire world crash down. Notice of payment due, loan agreement. That's right. She didn't just get money from me. She took out a loan. And now? It was time to pay up. Let's rewind for a second. When I told Emma I was going to pay off her student loans, I made it sound like a gift. Like I was her knight in shining armor, swooping in to take her burdens away. And to an extent, that's what I wanted her to believe. Because I wasn't stupid. I had seen how some people use others for financial gain. I had seen men lose everything because they blindly trusted the wrong person. And while I loved Emma, I also believed in protecting myself. So before I made a single payment, I had her sign a legal agreement. It's just a formality, I had told her, sliding the paperwork across the table. Just something to document everything for tax purposes. She barely skimmed it before signing. Why would she question it? She thought she was getting free money. She thought I was a fool. But buried in that formal document was a very important detail. The money wasn't a gift, it was a loan. With terms. And now that she had dumped me the moment her balance hit zero, that loan had just come due. The first text message came in at 10:42 a.m. I was at work when my phone buzzed. Emma, WTF is this letter? I ignored it. At 11:15 a.m., another one. Emma, you're joking, right? This isn't real. Right? At 12:30 p.m., she called me. I let it go to voicemail. By 3 p.m., my inbox was flooded. Emma, call me now. Emma, you can't do this. Emma, this isn't fair. Ah, there it was. The same girl who had looked me dead in the eye and said, I don't need you anymore, was now panicking. Now she needed me. I finally picked up at 7 p.m. Hey, I answered casually, like I had no idea why she was calling. What the hell is this? She shrieked. What's what? I asked, playing dumb. The letter. The loan? Are you serious? Oh, I said, pretending to suddenly remember. Yeah. That's real. You can't do this, she screamed. You said it was a gift. I chuckled. I never said that. You implied it. Hey, I mused. Sounds like you should have read the fine print. Silence. Then, she snapped. You're a piece of shit. I should have known you'd pull something like this. You can't legally force me to pay you back. Actually, I can. I let that sink in before continuing. See, Emma, I was happy to help you when I thought we were building a future together. But now? It's just business. Her breathing was ragged. I could hear the panic setting in. You can't just expect me to pay you back, she said, her voice shaking. Why not? I asked. You don't need me anymore, right? I don't have that kind of money. Oh, the irony. Because neither did I. That's why I paid it for her in the first place. But see, I had savings. I had a plan. She had nothing. And now, she was staring down a financial nightmare. Over the next few days, she tried everything. Begging. Crying. Guilt-tripping. You wouldn't really do this to me, would you? After everything we've been through? Then she tried flattery. Come on, babe. You know you don't actually expect me to pay you back. Let's just talk about this. And when that didn't work, she went nuclear. You are a manipulative, pathetic loser. I hope you rot. Cool. That didn't change the legally binding contract she signed. She tried to fight it. She even hired a lawyer. But guess what? She didn't have a case. She signed the documents. She agreed to the terms. And the best part? The loan had interest. Not a crazy amount, but enough that she now owed even more than I originally paid. And there was nothing she could do about it. Last I heard? She's working 2 jobs, barely keeping her head above water. She tried dating some rich guy, but he dumped her the moment he found out she was drowning in debt. Karma? It's a beautiful thing. And me? I moved on. I took the money she paid me back and put it toward someone who actually deserved it, myself. I traveled. I invested. I thrived. And Emma? She thought she was free. But now? She was more trapped than ever. I wish I could say that was the last I ever heard from Emma. That after realizing her free ride was over, she just accepted her fate and moved on. But no. Because the moment she realized just how deep she had dug her own grave, she came crawling back. It started with soft texts. Emma, hey. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Hope you're doing okay. Then came the reminders of good times. Emma, remember that trip we took together? I miss that. I miss you. I ignored them. And when ignoring her didn't work, she tried to meet up. Emma, can we please talk? Just for a little bit. She was testing the waters, seeing if I'd be dumb enough to fall for it again. But I wasn't that guy anymore. So I left her on red. Then, she tried guilt. Emma, I can't believe you actually want me to struggle like this. I thought you cared about me. Oh, I did care. Until she showed me exactly who she was. And when guilt didn't work, she went back to anger. Emma, you're a cold, petty asshole. You're punishing me just because I wanted to be happy. Me nah. I'm just letting you experience the financial freedom you were so excited for. Block. Meanwhile, I was doing great. I took the money she paid me back and used it for myself. I traveled. I invested. I built a future for myself that had nothing to do with her. And somewhere along the way, I met someone new. Someone who actually values me, and not for what I can provide, but for who I am. And let me tell you, that kind of love? It's worth more than any amount of money. As for Emma? Well, let's just say life didn't turn out the way she thought it would. The new guy she tried dating? They weren't interested in a girl drowning in debt. The lifestyle she thought she'd get to enjoy? Gone. And the worst part? She had to send me a check every month as a reminder of how badly she played herself. She didn't need me anymore? Well, turns out, she did. Just not in the way she expected. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been used by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Drop your stories in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more shocking real-life stories. Until next time, stay smart, stay strong, and never let anyone play you for a fool.